Hey guys, welcome back to Rumor and Theory. Today we're breaking down episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision, getting down into the nitty gritty and the details that most people missed. Let's get into it. Right off the start, I think there's something hinting at what's taking place in this entire series, and that's just simply the TV flashing on, representing Wanda flashing herself into a pocket dimension and creating that universe that we see in black and white in these 2 episodes, and later on in color at the end of episode 2. We also get a hint at this fake reality by the showrunners using Wanda and Vision's names as the cast in the show instead of Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. Just kind of a meta hint at what's taking place. Another thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking is the opening sequence compared to when we first see Wanda in that scene I just mentioned. Because in that opening sequence, they are just married, coming home from their marriage. Now, when we see them in that scene with the plate breaking, eventually it leads us to that date on the calendar, August 23rd. And if they're celebrating an anniversary, they obviously wouldn't celebrate an anniversary of their marriage the day they got married. So this hints to me that Wanda and Vision have been in this pocket dimension for over a year. Early on in episode 1, we get introduced to Agnes, Catherine Hahn's character, who obviously knows more than she's letting on, and I believe is hinting at that through her lines of dialogue. Now, the first one that we'll talk about right now, and I'll talk about more later in the video, is when she says charmed to Wanda. Now, I think this is just hinting at Wanda being charmed by maybe Mephisto, maybe Nightmare, maybe the Grim Reaper. Those are 3 characters that have been hinted at coming into the show or rumored to be the villains of this show, along with Agatha Harkness, who could be Agnes. So we will have to see on that in the next episodes, but I do believe that if you pay attention to Agnes's lines of dialogue, they're hinting at a much broader and bigger mystery, or just what's taking place in the world of WandaVision. One thing that a lot of people are bringing up is the tie of Vision with the logo on it in the middle. People are saying the 2 dots inside the rectangle are Wanda and Vision inside the pocket universe, and the 2 dots on the outside are Sword trying to get in, as well as Mephisto or Agnes controlling the other side. So that could be very well what it is, but I have a feeling it has a little more meaning than that, because when you look closer at the tie, it's not just dots on it, it's actually, it almost looks like an exaggerated version of the Sword logo, but I have a feeling it's not that, but it does have spikes and almost a flame type style coming off of those circles. So I have a feeling it's hinting at a little more than just a metaphor for what's going on with Wanda and Vision. Another meta type line within episode 1 is when Agnes and Wanda are sitting on the couch discussing Wanda's anniversary, and Agnes pulls up that magazine and pulls up the seduction recommendation section, and she goes on to say that single men die twice as often compared to married men, or something like that. Definitely that same gist. I think that's hinting at a what-if situation with Wanda and Vision, when in Infinity War they were talking about running away and not going back to the Avengers and not helping out, just running away with each other and never turning back. And you could say they would be getting married in that sense, or running off to get married. So maybe if they had done that, Vision would have survived, i.e. single men die, Vision dies, and married men don't die half as much. So it could be reaching, but I like that thought, and I like the detail put into the dialogue in the show, and the thought that that could be what the writers were going for. An obvious one is the bottle of wine having the reference to the House of M, which is a very strong influence on WandaVision. Obviously, it's been talked about since the series was announced, and throughout all the marketing and everyone else's YouTube channels, everyone's talking about it. So the bottle of wine representing the House of M. There you go, I put it in the video. So at this point in the episode, we're probably about right where they sit down to eat dinner with the Harts. So it's Wanda, Vision, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. And this is actually my favorite part of episode 1, because it kind of gives you a glimpse of what's going on in Wanda's head that we don't know about, and also who these people are inside this pocket dimension besides Wanda and Vision. And I think this hints at quite a lot. So let's start with him choking. I think, and it might be obvious to others, that he starts choking when he starts asking too many questions to Wanda. Too many questions gets Wanda upset because she knows deep inside that she's created this pocket dimension, and the answers he's asking, she kind of just doesn't have because they don't exist. So she's flustered and on the spot, and without knowing, forces him to choke to stop from him asking more questions. Now, when he starts to choke, we kind of get like a horror kind of vibe to the camera and what's going on with that. And we get a close-up or several close-ups of Mrs. Hart saying, "Stop it, stop it, stop it." And initially you think maybe she's talking to her husband like, "Oh, you're joking, stop joking." But obviously he's really choking, not joking. And Wanda is the cause of it. So when you go back and watch it for a second time, you can kind of see that Mrs. Hart is actually begging Wanda to stop choking Mr. Hart, which she does by asking Vision to help him, which I think is pretty cool and clever writing to hint at the bigger picture of what's taking place. Now, with the bigger picture, I think those two Harts, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, they're real people stuck inside Wanda's pocket dimension that she's created, and that stress of seeing her husband being almost choked to death caused her to break and talk to Wanda in a way. Maybe her subconscious, but she definitely was coming out as her real person in that moment, I believe. Now, leading that to an even bigger picture is that when you go and fast forward to a scene in episode 2 that we'll talk about later, where Wanda mentions she's not here to commit any harm to anyone. Now, take that line and go back to the scene we were talking about at dinner, which she didn't have control over harming anyone. Now, I think that's because she doesn't realize that these are real people. I think she went to Mephisto or Nightmare, and or Mephisto and Nightmare came to her, seeing her struggle and understanding how much power she has, and obviously they want to utilize it for something, maybe breaking out of a dimension they're in or somewhere they don't want to be, that they're stuck in a similar fashion that these people are now in with Wanda's pocket dimension. But I think that she was persuaded into taking an offer of entering her own world, but inside her head. Now, I think that's how it started off, and whoever gave her this offer and helped her create this world inside her head knew what they were doing. And now, a year later, as mentioned earlier in the video, I think she's manifesting with her powers the world that she has in her head, and it's engulfing whatever is around her, and those people that are in the world are now actually real people. So her comment about not harming anyone is honest and innocent, but that's only because she doesn't realize these are real people. All right, that's mostly episode 1. So now we're going to dive into episode 2, which has a little more connection to what I believe is to come in the series. Right at the start of this episode, we get something crazy that I think, again, hints at the bigger picture. So episode 1, opening, we get something that hints at the bigger picture. Now episode 2, we get something that hints at the bigger picture. And I think that something is those sounds that were coming from outside. So first, obviously, that tree wasn't there when Vision was looking out the window, or else he would have seen it. So it manifested after that. 2, the sounds that were coming from it weren't just tree tapping sounds. I mean, a tree on a window, it's a distinct sound, but it also has a usual sound or a common sound of just something banging on another thing. The sounds behind that were almost like a laser or photon blast or some kind of power being used. And I think that was someone on the outside of the pocket dimension using their powers to break into it. Now, who I think that was is pretty crazy, and I love the idea. And I know it's been talked about in other articles and previous stuff working up to the show, but the way they're doing it and introducing this character is pretty cool. And we will talk about that a little later in the video because she does come into this episode. Now, back to the tree being manifested. So, I'm not sure, this could be a reach, like we're reaching for the stars here, or for the moon, or whatever you want to reach for that's really high up. But I think that that tree not being there when Vision looks, and then being there when Wanda looks, is a hint at Wanda controlling things in the background, because there needs to be an explanation for that sound. And if the rumors are true and that's actually Vision's unconscious mind inside this pocket dimension, then he might deduce something else from those sounds and from those noises, or investigate it further. So Wanda maybe manifests the tree as what was creating that sound in order to trick Vision. Now, that's cool, but number two is a little more interesting. And the other idea with that is that that sound of someone breaking into Wanda's pocket dimension is someone breaking into Wanda's pocket dimension. But when they get there, as hinted by someone at the end of the episode, who I'll talk about later, obviously, maybe change into something that they weren't expecting. It could even be into a tree. And they could have been banging on that window trying to get Wanda and Vision's attention, because obviously the outside or SWORD is having a very hard time breaking into this pocket dimension. So maybe once they do get in, they're transformed into something that they weren't expecting. So that could be a reach, but I kind of like the idea of Wanda doing that in the background, maybe not even knowing about it. Another line of dialogue, I know there's a lot of lines of dialogue in this video, but I just think the writers are really infusing these lines with what's taking place and kind of hinting at what's to come, and kind of giving us a reason to dive into the show and break it down the way we are. So with that said, the next line of dialogue that I think hints at future stuff, or Wanda understanding and knowing what's going on and not letting the people in the pocket dimension or Vision or the audience really know, is when she says to Vision, "This is our home now." Now, I know that's a subtle line, but "this is our home now" doesn't reference anything in this pocket dimension before they were married, because in episode 1, they had no idea what took place before they were married, or before that even opening intro happened in episode 1. So with her, Wanda, saying, "This is our home now," she knows that this wasn't their home before. And she knows they came from somewhere else. And she knows that Vision might not be whole on the outside, and that his conscious is in the pocket dimension with her, and she's letting him know subconsciously or unconsciously that this is their home now. So another hint that Wanda knows a lot more about what's going on than she's letting anyone, including the audience, know. So now we get another Agnes and Wanda scene where it starts off just Wanda. We hear those sounds again of those blasts and those lasers in the background of those blasts and all that stuff that we heard with the tree in the beginning. And Wanda goes to investigate. And she comes outside and she sees that helicopter toy in the bush, and she notices it right away because it's not black and white, it's color. So it stands out, obviously. She approaches it, and the interesting thing about this scene that no one really is talking about is the slow turn of the helicopter in her hand, because she's turning it knowing and recognizing this doesn't belong here, and she probably knows, because she's been there for a year, that SWORD has been trying to shut this down. But she might think that SWORD is just trying to break her out of her own mind, but really it's a new pocket dimension that she's created by accident. But she's seeing it as they're trying to pull her out of this pocket dimension in her mind that she made, because obviously, I mean, she's an Avenger. They need her for a lot of things, and she shouldn't be doing this to herself because it's just not healthy, and she needs to get over the death of Vision and move on and grow from it. Now, these are people who care about her, so she knows that maybe they're going to try whatever they can to get her out of there. And when she turns that helicopter, she knows that what's going to be on the side of it is the SWORD logo. She's not turning that helicopter slowly because she's examining it for every detail. She's turning it because she's afraid to see that SWORD logo on the helicopter, because she's afraid to leave this perfect world she's created for her and Vision, because she obviously thinks it's just in her head. Now, there's another way you can take that, which is it was just a slow turn for the audience reveal, and that Sword is trying to get her attention by saying, like, this is us, this is our logo from a time period that obviously isn't this time period you're in now, one that you may recognize, and we're trying to get your attention and trying to break you out of this, like, some kind of like dimensional coma that you're in. So that's another take of it, and both could work, and I could see both leading to where I see the series ending up. So the next interesting part about this scene is Agnes pulling up, because how convenient, she's there to stop Wanda from recognizing a little bit further what's going on with that toy. Now, moving on to the next line of dialogue that hints at a bigger picture is when Agnes and Wanda are approaching Dottie's, and Wanda says, "Why can't I just be myself?" And we kind of get like a quick horror-esque shot of Agnes frowning to that thought, because that thought and her, or Wanda's real self, is the Scarlet Witch, a member of the Avengers, someone who is powerful enough to break whatever Agnes and whoever's helping her, maybe Nightmare, Mephisto, are doing. And that leads into the next portion of the episode where we're sitting at a meeting with Dottie and other people of the neighborhood. And there's a lot going on in this scene, like a lot. So it's pretty much it's almost the entire series laid out in this one scene, to be honest. Because we have the introduction of Tiana Paris' character, who we don't know the full name of, but she's been rumored to play Monica Rambeau. And now, back to the beginning of the breakdown for episode 2, where I talked about that sound of those photon blasts, which is Monica Rambeau's Avengers character name, or superhero character name, and the sounds of lasers or some kind of superpower being behind those knocking and rattling sounds coming from the tree. So I believe that was Monica Rambeau using her powers to break into the pocket dimension. And when she breaks in, she kind of forgets who she is. She doesn't really know what's going on, kind of like everyone else in the pocket dimension, and kind of fits into her spot in that world. But eventually, within the series, obviously, I think she'll start to put things together and somehow put her memory back, or will be launched out, as in the trailers, of the pocket dimension, and will retain her memories from being in there. So either way, I think she'll play a big role in breaking what Wanda is doing. Now, another line of dialogue Agnes delivers, hinting that she knows a lot more about what's going on than she's letting the audience or anyone else know, is that she says the devil is in the details. No, excuse me. Dottie says the devil is in the details, and Agnes says the devil is a lot more places than that, or something of that gist. Now, in the comics, Mephisto kind of takes the role of the devil and is pretty much modeled after our version of the devil in our world. So with that line of dialogue that Agnes delivers, saying the devil is a lot more in places than you think, it could just be hinting at who is really pulling the strings. Mephisto, or the rumor that Mephisto is. And that's just a rumor, so it could change. It could be someone totally different. We know Nightmare is going to be in Doctor Strange 2, or is rumored to be, so it could be Nightmare as well. But I really think that line of dialogue saying that the devil is a lot more places than you think is hinting at Mephisto. Now, the final portion of this scene is when Wanda and Dottie are just together, just them two, and Wanda's cleaning up. So while they're doing that, Dottie kind of approaches Wanda in a threatening way, saying she thinks that, in a nutshell, that she's gonna cause harm. And even though Wanda says in that scene that she's not here to cause anyone harm, and Dottie says, "I don't think that's true," or "I don't believe you," and it kind of takes Wanda back a little bit, because she is the creator of this world. Why is someone that she's created kind of challenging what she's doing? Which is kind of hinting at also that these are real people. So during that moment, the radio turns on, or the radio is on, and someone breaks through it from like the actual world, asking if Wanda knows who's doing this to her. So that's another hint at Wanda not controlling what's going on, and someone else pulling the strings, like Mephisto. But really, what I took out from that, from the overall just meeting with Dottie and the show, the talent show, was the line "for the children." So this was repeated multiple times and has kind of been planted and brought up multiple times by Agnes's character, as well as just the overall town, I guess you could say. So I think this is Mephisto, or whoever's pulling the strings, planting the seeds for Wanda to manifest children, because, I mean, there could be a million reasons. One of them could be that someone wants powerful children or powerful mutants like Wanda at an early age that they can manipulate and control, or maybe just a test of if Wanda has the power to create a living being. So there's multiple things that could happen here, but those seeds were definitely being planted because in the end of the episode, Wanda actually manifests those children and is now pregnant, and we see the baby bump. And so obviously whoever's pulling the strings wants this to happen. And that leads to the end of the episode where we hear more of those sounds, the blasts, the photon, the laser sounds behind the clanks and booms. And we are led to investigate it through the eyes of Wanda and Vision, obviously. And what we find out is someone inside a Beekeeper outfit crawling out of a sewer with the sword logo on the back of their outfit. Now, one thing I thought was strange, and was obviously a deliberate choice by the director, was to have him come off as very villainous. Because you would think someone from S.W.O.R.D., who is an ally of Wanda, would approach in a friendly manner, but this person did not. Or there's just something else going on with S.W.O.R.D. that we're not aware of right now. So I want to touch back real quick on when I talked about Wanda kind of changing whatever comes into her world to fit what she wants, kind of maybe even subconsciously, like that tree, maybe being a S.W.O.R.D. member. So now we have the Beekeeper coming in, wearing that outfit. Obviously, the S.W.O.R.D. logo is on it. So I think it might be that that suit that's protecting that person inside of it is protecting them from the reality-altering powers that Wanda has, and that takes over people when they enter into her world. And those bees that are on the outside of the suit, obviously, I don't think those are actually bees. I think those are visual manifestations of Wanda's powers trying to manipulate what's under the suit and just not being able to. And it's just a visual representation of what's actually taking place. The combatant of Wanda's powers against the struggle of someone trying to break in without being changed. So yeah, that's my take on that Beekeeper, and we'll see what happens with him because he's a very interesting character and it's up in the air, honestly. Alright guys, well that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, please like and subscribe for future content. We'll have WandaVision videos every week. We'll do a preview of each episode and a review and breakdown of each episode. And if you want some more videos, please comment below about what you'd like to see, and I'll get working on that right away because we're trying to build a good community here with people's voices being heard and being respected. So thank you so much for watching the video. Again, please subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next one.